I'm Matt Reynolds, and this is my podcast.
I can do the job, but running the business is quite difficult. What a lot of tradesmen lack, and I was probably one of them, is business skills.
I don't mind making mistakes. You learn from your mistakes.
Information is all around you in the minds of people that work beside you.
Welcome back to the Trench Talk podcast. I'm Matt Reynolds, and this week I ventured to the offices of Simon Griffiths to discuss building his company, Who Gives a Crap? The idea of these discussions, for those of you joining us for the first time, is to go into the trenches of achievement and talk, not with people who are orchestrating from some lofty perspective, but to those high performers who are actually in the trenches, honing their craft. That has included guests from the worlds of business, sport and entertainment, all of whom are on the front lines doing amazing things. A little over 5 years ago, Simon sat on a toilet for 50 straight hours as a publicity stunt to raise awareness for their crowdfunding campaign. The idea was to start a toilet paper company, and it worked far better than they ever thought possible. They raised $50,000, and the company, that now donates 50% of its profits to help solve sanitation problems in emerging countries, was off the ground. It's an incredible story. We covered the initial campaign that went viral and attracted 2.5 million social media hits, why he has chosen to follow the social entrepreneur model for building a company, and of course, much, much more. To find out more about Simon and his team, or to order the toilet paper, tissues, or paper towel, as I have and many others do, head to whogivesacrap.org. Enjoy my chat with Simon Griffiths. Simon Griffiths, thanks for doing this.
No, good to be here.
We're in your Melbourne offices today. Nice co-working space you've got here. Your team is dispersed quite a bit around the world. Have I got that right?
Yeah,
This is one of 3 offices?
Yeah. Soon to be 3. I think now we have even more than that because we've got team members in Melbourne, Sydney, New York, LA, and one outside of New York in Virginia as well.
Yeah.
And then Manila too. So currently we're spread all over the place, but we're sort of bringing the teams together into Melbourne, Manila, and Los Angeles as our 3 sort of major hubs and offices eventually as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've only found out about you just in the last few months, actually. My editor, Kate, at the Australian Plumbing magazine, suggested that I reach out to you, and in the time between she suggested that and then us sitting down today, we went through the process, but I got given, or my wife actually got given, a roll of your toilet paper for Christmas.
Oh, awesome.
And it took a little bit just to connect the two, but once I did, I thought, how brilliant is this? I looked into your brand and I thought, I bet you've had a lot of stories like that over the years where your toilet paper gets given as gifts and it becomes Christmas items and all that sort of stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. Christmas is surprisingly, I think toilet paper sales are generally quite flat. There's no seasonality in them except in our business where we do a roaring trade at Christmas.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Because, people love gifting it, and you might have got a roll of our limited edition that we do that's a Christmas range that we release every November for the holiday season, which is a lot of fun. So, that one tends to get gifted quite a bit.
It could have been, because each individual roll is a different packet.
It is, yeah. So we wrap every roll individually and usually one of 5, fun, quite unique, colourful designs.
Okay.
And it means that they can be stacked up in the bathroom and we've sort of tried to design things so instead of being left at the back of the cupboard and forgotten about, it's something that you can pop out on display and it looks nice in the bathroom, which is a bit of fun.
So it can become a feature as well.
Yeah.
Why not? Toilet paper.
But yeah, it means that a lot of people have ended up gifting them because they look quite pretty and it's sort of a reverent gift, I guess, or the maybe the appropriate gift for the person that has everything.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Well, I did pick it up and think to myself, well, what's this? Like, is there something different about this? And obviously that's what you've tried to build in the brand, I guess, because it's worked so well for you.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. We really enjoy it.
So for someone who doesn't know about Who Gives a Crap, tell them what you do.
So we're a forest-friendly toilet paper, tissues and paper towel business.
Yeah.
We're predominantly online and we sell direct to our customers, and then we use half of our profits to help build toilets in different parts of the developing world. So you can jump on our website, which is whogivesacrap.org, and we'll ship out to your door directly in 24 or 48 roll boxes. And you can also sign up for a subscription, so you get a regular delivery and we predict when you'll run out and basically make sure you never have to buy toilet paper again.
And is that, you work that out, it's not an every month thing, you actually work that out on consumption, on the order, like your previous history of your ordering?
Yeah, so what we do is we start with a sort of set frequency that's based on what we think will be roughly right given your household size.
Yep.
And then with your help, we kind of tweak that over the first few orders, and usually after 2 to 3 orders we get a really good reorder history, and then we can figure out when you'll run out of toilet paper before you do, and ship a box before it happens.
And is that computer generated, or is someone just have to sit there and work that out?
It's a little bit of both. So at the moment we have a bit of a blend of those two systems. But part of our subscription service is that there's someone that is there ready to receive your email if you want to change your delivery frequency, or skip a month because you're on holidays, whatever that looks like.
Yep.
We've got real people that pick up on your questions and will help to manage your order for you.
Okay, and they're all based in Australia?
One in Australia, and then the majority of that team's in Manila. Yeah.
Okay, great. You've been in business for 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years now. So we started selling, we ran a crowdfunding campaign initially in 2012, and then started selling product consistently from, I think it was July 2013. So we're just coming up to the 5th year anniversary from that month, which was, a while ago now.
Can you give us a snapshot of where you are in terms of the business?
Maybe I'll take it back a step and talk about the crowdfunding campaign.
For sure, yeah.
So we got started with the crowdfunding campaign just as things like Kickstarter were sort of becoming more and more mainstream, and I guess before that, crowdfunding was definitely a niche, and it was just starting to evolve into what it is today. Yep. We realized that we thought we had a product that a lot of people would enjoy. We needed the capital to help us get started, but we also realized that it wasn't just about placing the first production run, which was going to cost $50,000. It was also finding customers that would physically take that product and hopefully start to tell other people about it, because if you get stuck with $50,000 worth of toilet paper, it fills up your house, and you're going to have some other pretty big problems.
I can imagine it's quite a lot of toilet paper, yeah.
So basically, we saw there was an opportunity to crowdfund, but realized that we were working with probably the most boring product that had ever been crowdfunded before. And so we realized that, we didn't have a cult following or media to be able to leverage off to, get eyeballs on what we were doing. And so I got roped into sitting on a toilet on a live web feed until we'd pre-sold the first $50,000 worth of product.
I did read about this, 50 hours worth, right?
Yeah, 50 horrible, never ever to be repeated hours. And basically we got off to a huge success and managed to get, national print and television coverage here in Australia, huge print coverage all over the US, and we were strangely popular in Brazil and Greece, of all places. And we managed to generate about $1 million of equivalent PR value and 2.5 million social media hits from that campaign.
That's a dream start in any marketer's language, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. And so after that, we realized that really the only way that people bought toilet paper was through supermarkets. Yeah. And we didn't receive any supermarket interaction or interest from running that campaign, which was a bit of a surprise. We thought that we'd probably be able to get some attention and someone would want to stock us and put us on shelves. And so we took a step back and said, well, if we're not going to be in supermarkets, what can we do to make our product a bit different and fun? How can we use this to our advantage? And that was when we had the idea to sell online and wrap all of our rolls individually and put them into 24 and 48 roll boxes.
So you probably hoped it would go that well at the start, right? But did you really think it would?
No. So we really thought that it would be crazy for people to buy toilet paper online when, literally 99.9% of toilet paper was bought in supermarkets.
So fundamentally, you thought that was a bad idea?
We thought that it was going to be really challenging to make it work. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we also, we don't really talk about this too much, but we also set up a second line of product. And the idea was that would be our business-to-business product that we could sell into, high-volume skyscrapers or hotels or schools, and use that to, pound the pavement and build up business to eventually hopefully get Who Gives a Crap into supermarkets and ultimately try to make the at-home market something that we could dominate.
And is that branded Who Gives a Crap, or is that a separate brand?
So that's branded Role Model, and that's kind of our more affordable two-ply product. And then Who Gives a Crap's the more luxurious at-home product that hopefully everyone's seeing in their houses and cafes and everything else.
Well, Kate recommended I talk to you because they use it, or the master plumbers use it throughout their head office. So there you go. There's one customer. If you didn't know you had, you certainly do.
But yeah, so after that, we fulfilled our first round of orders like 8 months later, and I did the initial production run myself. It was basically a one-man team at that point. There was a couple of co-founders, but they were both working full-time.
Yep.
And so I was kind of doing, all of the production and customer service and logistics and everything else. And we landed product in March of 2013 and started sending it out to our crowdfunding campaign supporters. And without us doing any marketing or advertising, we started to see our daily sales levels jump, literally double day on day. And after 5 days, we'd sold out of the complete stock of product that we thought was going to take 3 months to sell through.
Oh, wow.
And so our warehouse called and said, we've never seen anyone sell a container load of product that quickly.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And when are we getting some more?
Yeah.
And at that point, we realized we were in a bit of a tight spot because we thought it was going to take 3 months and we had to, place new orders and catch up again and take back orders. And it took 3 months to land that new batch of product. And then that was July 2013 when we started really, consistently selling product for the first time. And so because basically that groundswell that we saw was from our customers posting about our product on social media, taking photos of it with their babies or their kids or their pets, literally taking rolls and giving them to their friends, families, colleagues, and telling everyone about what we did. And that early word of mouth groundswell was something that just continued for, forever on. And so the first 2 years of our business, we were literally just trying to catch up to the growth that was happening without us doing anything. And it just had, a strong sort of level of virality, I guess. And about 2 years in, we said, okay, we've kind of paved the road now. We're ready to drive down it. And that was when we started to advertise on social media for the first time. And that's sort of how we've gone about building our business. So we're now at about 30 employees. We've doubled or tripled in size every year since the beginning. Okay. And as of June 2017, we donated $1.175 million.
Okay, so you've made that public now, what you donate.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's a pretty good achievement, isn't it? In just that short amount of time, considering that a lot of businesses struggle to be profitable and stay around at all, to be able to run your business and donate that amount of money is phenomenal.
Yeah, no, it was a huge achievement for the whole team and something we're all incredibly proud of.
Did your social media following continue to grow? Are you still getting customers' awareness through that? Probably not maybe at the rate that it started. Or is it still spreading? Yeah,
definitely. We also started selling in the US and the UK at the beginning of 2017. Okay. And so now those markets are, really starting to take off for us as well. So the size of our social media following still just, going gangbusters. And we have an incredible band of customers who we love and love what we do as well, which is amazing. Yeah.
Have you had to change that message going into different markets?
Originally, we thought that Who Gives a Crap wouldn't work as a brand name in the United States in particular.
And why was that?
I think it sort of means something a little bit different there. Like it's kind of a sort of who cares kind of like, the sentiment behind it is something that's a bit more negative. Whereas I think in Australia and the UK, it's definitely kind of more slang and part of everyday usage, I guess. Whereas in the States, it's probably for a disobedient teenager rather than, everyone every day.
So it's taken a little bit more seriously in general.
But I think that interestingly, I think the vernacular of mainstream media probably shifted a bit with Trump coming in. And we found that it was possible for brands to talk in a way that was quite different to what they ever had done in the States. And as a result, it's proving quite successful, which has been really good.
Did you build those followings into those countries and then launch off the back of that? Did you go ahead of time? How did that play out?
For us, it was more about we always kind of want to test things and try them out before we launch properly. So we talk about our soft launch and then our strong launch.
Okay. Yeah.
Being a toilet paper business, soft and strong.
Yeah. Works
and so in those markets, it meant putting product in there, getting it into the hands of customers, and surveying them and trying to understand what parts of it they liked and didn't like, and whether we could get the logistics to work in the way we wanted it to, whether it was fast and reliable, and whether we could get the costs to be in the right place that we needed to in order to make donations. And so it took probably about 6 months of testing before we said, I think we're probably about ready to press go on this. Okay. And then we moved into our strong launch, I think in September of 2017. Yeah.
And how have sales gone in the first few months?
Yeah, good. I think it's always entering new markets requires thinking about how you do things a little bit differently, and it took us a few months to find our feet, but it's going really well, and we're really happy with what 2018 is looking like. So yeah, super exciting.
Do you see that as your biggest market?
It definitely, in terms of pure customer numbers, those two markets are so much bigger than Australia. I think the UK 3 or 4 times and the US 15 times.
Yeah.
Whether we can get the same level of market penetration as what we have in Australia, I think will be, time will tell. But it would be amazing if that's possible. And if that happens, then they'll definitely be our biggest markets.
You mentioned supermarkets before. You're not in supermarkets at the moment, is that right?
So we are in a number of independent grocers and organic stores.
Okay.
And then we have done some stuff with IGAs in Victoria with a 6-pack product that we wanted to test and see if it was something that could potentially work on a supermarket level. Yeah.
But the big players, Coles, Woolworths, Aldi, that's...
Yeah, we haven't gone down that direction so far.
Okay.
We've had conversations, but haven't got to a place where we felt like it made sense for us to operate, given what we wanted to do as a business.
Do they offer any sort of concessions at that level for the cause that you're supporting, or not really?
Not really, no. So for the big guys, that's something that's yet to become part of their business model. I think consumers these days are definitely demanding more and more products that give back or have responsibility built into the manufacturing process, or how the proceeds from sale are used. And that's yet, I think, to filter through into the supermarket level. So I'd like to think that's a shift that we'll see in the next 5 to 10 years, where supermarkets will have to start playing ball a little bit differently to work with smaller companies than just working with the larger incumbents and negotiating on price.
Yeah.
But, time will tell.
Where does this passion for social entrepreneurship come from? Because there's sort of two different roads you can go down if you want to make a difference, right? You can go down the road that you've taken with supporting causes along the way, or I guess you could go the other way and go and earn the money and then give it away. And we've seen, I suppose, both those options work to varying degrees. There's famous examples of that. Where did that passion first come from, and then why have you taken that road?
I think for me it was, I always get frustrated when I can see that there's a better way to do something, and that, the way that we're doing something at the moment isn't optimized. And so I think everyone gets some sort of a buzz out of buying stuff, and there's endorphins that get released when you open a new box for the first time, to varying degrees depending on who that is. And I was really interested in how you can take that kind of element of consumerism and use it to go beyond just consuming the physical product, and start to think about all of the other stuff that comes with purchasing that product. And so I saw that I thought that there was a better way for us to build companies and attract customers by using the profits from the sale in order to create social impact. And so Who Gives a Crap's kind of one of a couple of different manifestations of that have come along over the years, and seems to be resonating really well, and people are really enjoying it. I think for me, the why not just make tons of money and then give it back argument really just comes down to, for me, what I'm passionate about isn't just making money, it's about creating the social impact piece, and that needs to be a part of the everyday, overarching reason that I get up in the morning. Otherwise it's kind of, not for me, I suppose. So it seemed really logical to kind of combine that into an everyday product and create something that everyone needs and use it to help people in need, and then through that allow consumers to think about how they spend their money a little bit differently, because if they're buying, say, a Microsoft product, they're not necessarily knowing that that's ultimately going to end up creating something that's philanthropic, whereas with Who Gives a Crap, they know straight away that that's the reason why we exist.
And you're on the front foot with that, you're up front with your marketing. And
I think the other part of that is that really we strongly believe that we're not going to solve the sanitation problem by ourselves, let alone all of the other social problems that are out there. And in order for that to happen, I think we have to, the way that we think about that is that we need to show that it's possible to run a successful business that creates social impact, but also creates a financial return for the business owners. And that's why we have 50% that's donated, and the other 50% at the moment stays in the business, and almost all of it gets reinvested to grow the business, which helps us to ultimately build more toilets. But if we can show that it's possible to be financially successful whilst having the social impact, that's going to help bring more entrepreneurs and more investors into the space, and ultimately see thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands more businesses that are operating with this same model. And that's where we can have the most impact as individuals with what we're doing. And so really that's kind of what we're trying to show is possible.
I got it. So you want to set an example for doing business this way.
Yeah.
And attract other people in. Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about it like that before.
Show that you can win customers with that approach, because if you can do that and you can do it with toilet paper, then you can do it with any product that exists.
Why sanitation?
So sanitation, I think,
Just to prove that if you can do it with that, you can do it with anything.
I think, we had all seen the sanitation problem firsthand in different ways. So the three co-founders, I'd spent a lot of time in the developing world and studied development economics at university. And, anyone who's spent a lot of time in the developing world has seen some really horrible sanitation setups.
Yeah.
Jehan is Sri Lankan, and he's first generation Australian. And so, again, has seen a lot of that firsthand. And Danny has spent a lot of time working on solutions for, new business models in sanitation and trying to figure out how you can deploy sanitation solutions to the bottom of the pyramid. And so we'd all kind of seen that in different ways. And I think really became interested in the idea that it was, at the time, the most off track of all of the Millennium Development Goals, partly because sanitation is, it's icky and it's gross and people don't like talking about it. Usually it's the one thing that doesn't come up at a dinner party.
Yeah, true.
And we thought that there was an opportunity to sell a product that, is obviously really closely related to sanitation, and use that as a vehicle to start having that conversation and bring it out, into the public in a way that wasn't icky and gross, because it was part of what's, hard baked into the product that we're selling.
Yeah.
And do that in a fun way, so that it wasn't just about, this challenging conversation, but instead making it something that's quite fun and enjoyable and hopefully funny.
From a numbers sense, from when you started to where you are now, 5 years down the track, have you seen an improvement, like hard data improvement in this sanitation space?
I'd have to, maybe I can have a look at the numbers and come back to you after this and give you some data around it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely improvement in the space. There's a long way to go. I think at the moment, our goal really as a company is to see the sanitation, or everyone having access to a toilet globally by 2050.
Yeah.
And I think at current rates of spending, that'll happen by about 2080. So we really want to see that process accelerated, and make sure that we're alive to see that happen, because, 2080, probably, I'm not sure I'm going to be around when that happens.
Do you measure your impact beyond just the numbers, or is it a dollar goal for you at the moment?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think there's a lot of challenges.
Sorry, I suppose there's the raising the money, but then there's deploying it
for sure
effectively, right? And they're two vastly different things.
Yeah, totally. So at the moment, the other kind of challenge here as well is there's raising the money and deploying it effectively, and there's also telling that story to your customer base in a way that motivates them to be really interested in what we're doing, and as a brand, that's kind of the third pillar that we have to think about. So in a way, how we kind of market that story. And so the way that, we donate at the moment is that we provide unrestricted funding, because if you think about, if you're a kid, someone giving you pocket money and saying, here's your $1 for the week, but you're only allowed to spend it on, potato chips, and you don't like potato chips, or you want something else, then that $1's not really worth anything. And that can be the same thing with restricted funding, where you're funding a specific project. There may be a better use of the funds, or something else that's absolutely necessary, like paying the electricity bill, that can't be done because that funding is tied to one specific project. And so we believe the highest impact way for us to make donations is to provide that funding in an unrestricted manner, which means that we can't, unfortunately, physically tie it to one particular project and say, well, we know that with that capital that we deployed, we were able to provide a school block that now gives 400 children access to a toilet. We can say that, we know that similar projects have cost this much money and have been able to impact this many school kids, and therefore we can make estimates based on that. But it's not possible for us to specifically pinpoint, what our per head impact looks like without restricting the funding, which we think is less optimal when it comes to creating the highest level of impact possible.
Who do you send the money to then?
Yeah, and so I mean, we could talk about this for hours. But we started off working with WaterAid Australia initially, and still work with them today. As we sort of got a bit bigger, we've started to invest in other organisations doing great work as well.
Okay.
And so WaterAid's approach is very much traditional deployment of capital in the sanitation space, working with the poorest of the poor, usually, particularly WaterAid Australia, where they're in Timor and Papua New Guinea as their primary markets. They're in hard to reach rural areas where you're building out of local materials, whatever can be sourced, in order to not only build toilets but provide clean water and sanitation education for the first time. So why it's important to be hand washing and setting up hand washing stations and everything else. And so the approach that they take is what's called community-led total sanitation, where you're doing sanitation, clean water and education at the same time. And it's been shown that if you do just one of those three things, you're about 10% as effective as when you do all three together, which is why that's the methodology that's followed. Again, it's very much traditional approach to deployment of capital, which means that it's dollar in order to have a toilet out. And so we've started to invest in some different projects that have a different risk profile, like Sanitation is a great example in Kenya, was our second investee. And they work in the urban slum environment in Nairobi, which is a very densely populated area. No plumbing. The kind of streets and walkways aren't wide enough to put cars down them. And so they had to figure out how to put in toilets and then get the waste out of the slum area without using any plumbed systems. And so it's all above ground, but with canisters that lock off and can be loaded into carts and then carted out of the slum, and then loaded up into trucks that take them out to a production facility. And then this is kind of where it gets amazing. They're figuring out how to turn waste into something that can be monetized. So they're looking at potentially pathogen-free chicken feed, but also a bunch of other stuff around fertilizer use and a few other potential solutions that kind of come into that basket. And the end game for them is to show that if they can put these toilets in and recoup enough of the costs through monetizing the waste that comes out of them and reduce the cost per person down to, it's around sort of $10 a head, then the Kenyan government will potentially come in and help to fund the provision of toilets across the 8 million people that live in the slums of Nairobi. And so it's kind of a high-risk solution where you're essentially betting on being able to show that this proof of concept can work for however many thousand people, to then step that up into hopefully the 8 million people that live in that environment, and then other cities around the developing world as well.
So the payoff could be huge, really, couldn't it?
Yeah. And so they're kind of at the extremes of how we fund. And then there's a bunch of different organizations, not a bunch, there's 2 organizations that kind of fit in the middle of that, from WaterAid to Sanitation, that we'll be talking about in our impact update in February this year, 2018.
How do you calculate how much money, that's where you send it, how do you calculate how much money to send? Because you said 50% of profits.
Yep.
Is it a per box, per roll amount? Is it forecast? How does the logistics behind that work?
Yeah, so what we do is, and this is, I guess, for anyone that knows about running a business, which I'm guessing most of your listeners do.
A few of them will, yeah.
Yeah, so you, as people would know, you generally don't know what your profit is until you close off the end of the financial year. And so leading up to June 30, we're making best guess of what we think the donation amount should be. And then we have to, at the moment, pay that out before June 30 under tax law in order to make sure that it is a tax-deductible expense for the business. And so it can be expensed off before June 30, and therefore, the amount that we're taxed on is after donation.
Okay.
And so we're making a best estimate. And then in July or August, we sort of see how close we've got. And then if we need to, we can donate a bit more to top it up. And so, the current strategy has been to always try to donate just a little bit more than what we think 50% will be. And that way we know we're over that 50% threshold for the year. And if we have to, we can top it up at the beginning of the next year.
We'll make any adjustment necessary, I guess.
Yeah. And so far we've always over donated, which now means, this year we could potentially donate, 47% or whatever that is. And over the 5 years or 6 years that we've been operating, we would have an average of 50% of profits being donated for the total amount of profit that we've generated in that time.
So just like money goes up and down as it comes in the door, it sort of levels out at the end.
And the huge challenge is cash flow, because you're trying to grow the business, which means you're investing more in all of our inventory that's now in 10 warehouses globally, and at the same time trying to pay out those donations at June 30. So that's the real kind of balancing act.
So when the three of you, absolutely. When the three of you sit around your, I was going to say a boardroom table, it's probably more your computers, and you discuss where you're going and what you're doing and all that sort of stuff. How do you make that decision? Because, I mean, if you don't donate for a couple of years, I guess you could grow the business and in theory donate a lot more later. So how do you work out how much to reinvest back in?
Yeah, well, I mean, pretty much everything else that's left over gets reinvested back into the business, and that's kind of for future growth. And we have had to make decisions around being able to see that we could potentially grow the business faster by investing more in the cost of acquiring new customers, whether that's advertising or marketing or whatever it is, but actively say, well, that's not how we want to grow the business, because we believe it's important for us to be making donations every year to show that our customers that we're doing what we say we're doing. And if we ran up a loss, technically we could not make a donation and we're still donating 50% of profits, but that's not really, I think, living up to what we've promised our customers. And so that is a constant thing that we're sort of thinking about and comes up a lot when we're thinking about how to grow the business moving forward. It's not to say that there aren't different ways of doing that, but for the moment we think the approach that we're taking is the one that makes the most sense.
Have you had anyone approach you to invest in the business? Because it seems like a pretty attractive thing that others would want to get involved in.
Yeah, and we have had debt investors that have helped us to manage the working capital requirements.
Oh, you have had that? Okay, I didn't realise that, right.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I think there's definitely been investors that have approached us along the way, and I think debt and equity, we've never done straight equity investments, but that might be something that we'd look at in the future. Yeah.
Does any customers try to want to send you money to help support the cause? I wonder whether there's a sort of a collection arm as well, because you're doing such great work. If you want to be involved more, do you sort of cater for that, or that's not what you're about? We've
had a couple of things. We last year for Earth Day we ran a campaign that was pay what you want, and so cool. Like you can take out a subscription, and the first box you can pay whatever you want for it. Yep. And we had some customers that came in and gave us really significant amounts more than what the actual box should have cost to help us support what we were doing. And we've definitely had customers that have reached out and said, I'd love to donate. The way that we're set up at the moment, we direct them to one of our partners to make a direct donation. But we've had thoughts around, does it make sense for us to at some point set up a foundation that can look after the donation arm of what we're doing and receive 100% of the donations in the business and then deploy it from there. But at the moment, we want to focus on what we're best at, which is selling toilet paper.
Of course. Let's talk about the manufacturing process. You manufacture in China.
Yep.
And you do that because the impact, the footprint you leave on the earth is smaller than if you actually manufacture in Australia due to the transportation.
Yeah.
Have I got that right?
I think the best way to explain this, there's a lot of law about what you can and can't officially claim. And so my understanding is that we are still completing a study that will allow us to spell out what that claim looks like.
Okay.
But I think one of the things when we started out looking at production, and I was kind of running that process, and I said, well, initially when we looked at China, we thought maybe it doesn't make sense because the production or the transport footprint would be so big.
Yes.
But then I sort of looked into it some more and realized that if you're a single mill in Australia and you're sending product around the country in trucks, that actually creates a huge environmental footprint because trucks are about 8 to 10 times less efficient than ships on the sea.
Right.
And so when we looked at Chinese production, we realized that if we had warehouses that were set up all around the country, it would ultimately reduce the amount of truck miles that we'd have when we're sending product to a customer, because the trucks are now traveling a shorter distance from the warehouse to the customer, and we can get ships into ports that are close to those warehouses.
Okay.
And so on, back of the envelope calculation, it looks like the environmental transport footprint was pretty similar to what would happen if you were, producing in Australia and then trucking it around the country.
Okay.
But we do need to go through a proper third-party verification to, before we can officially state what that transport footprint looks like.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that stops people. I'm not saying that you clearly not, but I suppose it just stops those wild claims.
Yeah, totally. And I think that was the first kind of big tick of realizing that production offshore actually could be something that would make sense for us. And then it's also been great in terms of entering new markets, because we've been able to work with existing production facilities and then ship product out to the US and UK, which has enabled us to open up new markets probably quicker than what we otherwise would have been able to.
So it's 100% manufactured in China.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you sell in China out of interest? No, you don't.
No. So currently we sell in 37 countries, but they're North America, Europe, and Australia.
Let's talk a little bit about you.
Yep.
What's been the hardest part of this journey?
Oh my God, there's a lot of hard parts. Do you mean today or this week or?
Since in the last 5 years, because entrepreneurship and starting these things, and it all looks rosy and fluffy from the outside, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you sit down with a business owner and you start to delve into a few minutes of conversation, you realise that it's not all that way.
Definitely not rosy.
It's a flat out slog most of the time, right?
Yeah.
So in the last 5 years, what's been the most challenging period? Have you ever wanted to quit?
I've never wanted to quit, but. I think personally it was probably adjusting from, just being myself and my wife to then having a baby for the first time, and having some really stressful moments at work during, those first 6 months probably of having a new baby, and realizing that it's just not possible to operate at the same level as what you can when you don't have a kid.
I'm glad you said that, because I found the same thing.
Yeah. Well, you've got twins, right?
I do, yeah.
Can't even imagine.
It certainly does. I mean, you're tired all the time, right? Let's be honest. So that makes it more difficult at work, for sure.
And so I think, honestly, that's probably the biggest adjustment, and probably it sounds crazy, but it was really hard to imagine how challenging that would be beforehand. Most challenges you can sort of get a feel for what it looks like, but I feel with parenthood there's kind of a bit of a veil pulled over the reality of parenthood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was probably the biggest one, and it just took a long time to readjust to finding the right rhythm of work and home and everything else. In order to, feel like I wasn't doing one of those buckets of work, home, family, friends really poorly. It's been a long work in progress.
Do you have a little bit of a system now behind how to organise that? Because it's something that a lot of people struggle with for, sometimes a long period.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a huge shift in, I work from home as well, which can make it extra challenging.
Yeah.
But definitely a huge shift in sort of figuring out how to organize my day and block out periods of time where I was, only working or definitely not working, so that there wasn't kind of the blurring of, work and home life, which had always happened before that. And I think is something that happens a lot for people who are self-employed. But now we've sort of refound the rhythm. It's great, and it's probably a lot healthier as well, because there's times where I'm definitely not thinking about work for long periods, and they're blocked out for my family. And I think that's something that everyone should be trying to do, regardless of whether they got kids or not.
It's that on-off switch, isn't it? All in or all out. That it actually comes up a fair bit in these conversations, because when you're pulled in all these different directions, it's damn hard.
Yeah. But I think running a business is constantly about rolling with the punches and learning every day and enjoying that process of feeling uncomfortable because you don't know what the answer is, but that really means that you're about to learn something new for the first time. Becoming a dad was a big one of those. It just took a lot longer to figure out than most of the other ones, I guess.
Have you modelled what you've done off the back of any one or multiple influences?
I think there's tons of people that we look up to in different aspects of how we go about doing things, whether that's in philanthropy or in the e-commerce kind of side of our business, or in terms of packaging or marketing or anything else. We definitely try to have conversations with those people that we find inspiring and check in with them and ask them for feedback on what we're doing to try to help us get better and improve as we go.
Do you have advisors for the business?
Not in a kind of formal setup at the moment, and that is something that we're hoping to formalize this year. But a great example is one of our debt holders who's an amazing philanthropist, and so helps sort of give feedback on both how the business is going, but also really think about how we're donating the money and making sure that part of the impact part of the business is something that's well thought through, and we're always kind of asking the right questions to make sure we end up in the right place.
A global team, really working remotely. What does a typical day look like for you? You're sort of in our offices. You work a little bit from home. So is every day the same? Is it different?
What we find is your day sort of gets organised based on which time zone you're in and which time zones you're working with. And so for me, most of my work is usually with the Australian team or the American team, and that means that my mornings overlap with the US, and as a result, they're where I have to take a lot of my calls.
Right.
And so starting the day is usually with some sort of a call, whether that's a one-on-one catch-up or a team call that then leads into follow-up. And now my job as CEO, I guess, has become more about supporting the team and removing the roadblocks for them to be able to do what they do as best as they can. And so really it's about ensuring that I'm helping them to clear the way in order to make it possible for them to be awesome. So that starts with a call, and then the follow-up that comes out of that, and rolls into special projects that I might block out time for in the afternoons. One of the things I found with with a young baby at home is those calls happen in the morning, and usually our baby's out of the house then. Right. And the other period I'll block out for calls is in the middle of the day where I know he's going to be asleep. Yep. And then everything else, you can work from outside or be in a co-working space if he's at home, and figure out how to sort of schedule your day around what's happening with family life as well.
So it's a constant juggle, really, I suppose, as a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
right?
It's true. And finding that, what that rhythm is that works for you. Which for me usually means breaking the day up into chunks and using those chunks to work in a different place or work on a different problem.
Are you in a period of consolidation now because you've just opened the US? Do you have to stagger those markets that you look to go into?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, and one that we probably hadn't thought about until the last year.
Right.
But our growth is definitely, it tends to go in a big spurt, and then there's a period of consolidation before we have the next big spurt. And so we've probably come out of a pretty heavy period of consolidation, and now we're starting to see, the next period of growth take off again. Right. But it's great to sort of, change the way we think about that, instead of growing all the time to, those periods of growth versus consolidation, and tightening everything up and getting better systems and processes to enable us to go through that next growth spurt without breaking everything and everyone in the business.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen, it's really important because, or else you can if you can drive something too hard and then eventually it breaks, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Do you still meditate on planes?
I do. I was thinking you were asking about daily routine. So now I usually meditate in the evening just before going to sleep.
Right, yeah.
And then, find time to meditate as a trigger. Meditation, I think, is something that has been really great for me in terms of helping to get more out of my day generally. But it can often be hard to remember to do it, all the time. And so planes are a big trigger for me. And I know when I'm, jumping on a plane, you sort of get on and then realize that you've sort of got 10 minutes while you're taking off where you can't use your computer or whatever that is.
Yeah. And
so that's always where I do a meditation and sort of get stuck into the flight.
And was there a reason that you got into it originally?
Part of it, I think, is that, planes have always been a place to kind of think at a different pace to what you would when you're connected to the internet. And so I used to do a lot of travel before having a baby.
Yeah.
And now I travel less than what I probably have over the last 10 years of my life.
Right.
And I realized that that meant that I didn't have that kind of extended period of time to, switch the pace at which I was thinking out and kind of zoom out and think about some of the bigger picture ideas or problems or directions of where we were trying to go. And so in a way, meditating at the start of a flight is a moment to kind of switch that pace and get into gear to do a different sort of thinking to what I normally would in, a regular Monday to Friday day. Yeah.
So to prompt to...
Yeah.
So you take that helicopter view of the whole situation, right?
Yeah.
Just a couple more questions, Simon, and then we'll wrap up. If you could click your fingers and have it all done, where do you and the business sit in 10 years? I
don't think we'll ever be done. I think for us, it's all about solving this huge problem that affects about, a third of the entire world at the moment. And we'd like to see that problem solved by 2050. But that doesn't mean that, we'd be like, right, we're done. We're wrapping up the business. Yeah. Then I think there will always be a new challenge and a new problem and a new thing that we'll want to keep working on. I don't know if that answers your question, but
well, it's an outlook, right? I guess it's the purpose is to sort of get an understanding of the mindset, but there's no end game that you see at the minute.
No, I don't think so. It's kind of always be looking for that next part of the growth versus consolidation phase and where we get to, and be thinking about how to lay the footpath essentially to allow us to walk to where we want to go. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a minimalist?
I've never thought about that before. I'm probably somewhere between. I think I'm probably maximal on some things and minimal on others.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to buying things, I probably buy less things than less objects and stuff than what a lot of people would.
Yeah.
But then like to sort of go maximal on enjoyment or experience or whatever else it is that I get fulfillment from. That's an interesting question.
Well, the reason I ask is because that's sort of the way that you look at your business, right? Well, I guess there's another way of saying it is efficiency. But because of your cause, you think of these 3 and 4 levels beyond. And I just wondered, if you go to buy a T-shirt, do you think about where the T-shirt's made and how it's produced and the impact that it has? And do you go with that? Is that a thing that you run in your mind all the time?
Yeah, I think if you do that all the time, you end up in a situation where you can exhaust yourself from having to go too deep. And so I think there has to be a threshold where you choose how far you want to go on each thing. And so T-shirts are an interesting example where I only ever wear black T-shirts, and all of my T-shirts are black T-shirts because then I don't have to think about what I'm going to put on for the day.
Yeah.
And I think, I definitely take that same approach with parts of the business and are looking for kind of the most simple and straightforward and elegant solution. But then when it comes to things like a customer experience or a staff experience or thinking, how can we blow the top off this and make this, more exciting and different to what anyone's ever seen before. Yeah. That certainly comes out as well. So it's probably sometimes leaning towards the minimal and other times leaning towards the maximal, depending on what it is.
But you're thinking through those.
Yeah. And how can you achieve the maximal piece of it in the most, whether it's environmentally efficient or another level of efficient way, so that you create and craft an experience that's really wonderful, but do it without creating, collateral damage, I guess. Yeah.
Does the customer experience, as in the person using your products, drive you more, or is it the impact that you're having?
I think it's kind of the combination of both. So the big macro overarching picture is about the impact piece.
Yeah.
But we don't get to see that impact every single day. So that's kind of, the big reason why we do what we do. But on a daily level, I think we do get to see how our customers interact with product or share what we're doing. And so you sort of have to take motivation from both of those things. And I think, if the big overarching impact piece wasn't there, what's happening on a customer level on a daily basis would be less exciting than what it is. And likewise, if it was just the impact piece and you couldn't sort of find joy or excitement in, what's happening on a day-to-day level, I don't know if you'd be able to, to shoot for that big impact, picture as well.
Do you have moments where you pinch yourself and about what you've done? Because you set out to do this and you're well and truly doing it. And do you have those moments where you go, I mean, not in an arrogant way, but I've really, this is happening, we're doing it.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's, it's always, I think anyone who runs their own business probably finds themselves being drawn to other people who run their own businesses, because you have, so many shared stories and can learn so much from each other. And there's definitely, those conversations where you talk about what what you'd like to achieve. And so hitting one of those milestones and being able to reflect back on it's a real pinch yourself kind of moment. So donating $1 million was a big pinch yourself moment for,
I could imagine,
for I think everyone on the team, where it was like, wow, like this is really working, and amazing to be able to see that continue growing and see the impact that we'll be able to continue having. Yeah, awesome. One question that I ask everybody, if you have one law changed or introduced, what would it be? That's a really interesting question. Yeah, I think it might be to allow more autonomous driving, because I end up doing a lot of driving, and I think it would be awesome to be able to make that part of my day more efficient. Have you got your eye on a Tesla or anything like that? You want to go in that direction though, right? Something like that. But I mean, imagine if we could get, autonomous taxis and stuff working, then I think it would change, commuting to work would become very different if you could sit in the back of an electric vehicle that's now, environmentally efficient, but also allows you to get work done while you travel in a manner that allows you to potentially go longer distances than what you might ever have done before. And I think that would then, change the way that urban sprawl happens and allow people to live in different parts of the state, hopefully closer to nature, which I think would be a good thing for everyone. Do you have any books or documentaries that you recommend? Yeah, so for us, we're really big fans of the lean startup. And that's the methodology that we follow when it comes to, testing new ideas and seeing what works and what doesn't, and then using that to refine our thinking and continually going through the process of testing, rather than just trying to go big with, one idea that we know is probably not going to end up being right. And so that's an amazing book for people that run their own business and are thinking about how to create new things or try new ideas out. And then there's another one that I really like at the moment, which I think, again, is great for people who run their business. It's called Radical Candor. And it's about, how to deliver feedback in a way that is really positive for your staff members, which means, really good and honest feedback, but also showing people that you care about them. And that's why you're giving them that feedback, so that you can help them be more awesome at what they do. Is that a focus you're having personally now as the team's growing? Like, there's more of a need to do that? Yeah, definitely. Now with 30 people, I think I have 6 or 7 direct reports and at the moment, and it means that people's probably a bigger focus for me than what it ever has been. And that comes with, new challenges and new things that you have to learn along the way. So, Radical Candor was probably my favorite book of last year, where I was having to figure out how to, help give people better feedback so that they can ultimately be better at what they do as well. Awesome. Now, to get your toilet paper, whogivesacrap.org. Yep. You head there and you can find links to
social channels, and everything else comes from that website, right?
Yeah, and the social channels are all just at Who Gives a Crap TP for toilet paper.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, so, how good's that?
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up, Simon?
No, I can't think of anything else. It's been awesome. Thanks for having me.
Cool. I'm going to let you get back to your day. Thank you for having me in, and good luck. It's an inspiring journey, and it's great work you're doing, and it's great to use the product and observe what you're doing, and it's been a blast. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you. Cheers.
Hey everybody, it's Matt again. Thanks for listening. Just a couple of things before you guys clock off. You can get all Trench Talk episodes at xrm.com.au/podcast. You can also sign up for other goodies at the same site. Just plonk your email in there and you are covered. That's X for X-ray, R for Romeo, M for Mike.com.au/podcast. If you really like what I'm bringing you, please head to iTunes, subscribe to this show, and leave a review right there. And lastly, if you want to contact me directly, type the @ followed by Mr. Matt Reynolds into your search bar and you'll find all the social links. Goodbye.